anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes.
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuit!
Everybody loves Hippo Toes.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premier podcast TV party tonight. I'm your host, the man-did reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight we continue our journey from the corner to the deuce as we examine all the great works of young David Simon. We are looking at Homicide, Life on the Street, The Corner, and now we're on season 3 of The Wire, simply the greatest show in the history of television. Wouldn't you say, Juicy J?
Oh, my goodness. Not only may this be the best show ever, but this might be my favorite season of the best show ever. I really like this season.
Controversial. This one doesn't have this doesn't have Ziggy's dick in it.
Oh, Ziggy's dick.
Oh, Ziggy's dick.
I almost went Quantum Leap there for a second, and I was like, oh, no, wait a second. He's referencing the previous season. Mark has no idea about no Quantum Leap. That's okay.
Yeah,
go ahead, Mark.
Quantum Leap. So, all right. This season, we are looking at politics. Oh, yeah. As, what's his face? Mel Brooks used to say. Season 3 is really like the second half of season 1. It's the continued rise and fall of the Barksdale Organization, but it also introduces Marlowe and this Marlowe-Stanfield organization. We get a brief glimpse of Snoop, and we get a little bit of Chris Partlow. This is the big gang war that happens between Stanfield and Barksdale. Avon Barksdale comes home from prison this season. Stringer's been running it all of season 2. And at the end of it, he got in on Prop Joe's package. And did he get some of his package. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy, did he ever.
But they had to share territory in order for that to happen, which, because Avon didn't realize what Stringer was doing, he called in Brother Mozone to run Cheese, played by Method Man, and his peoples off of the Barksdale territory.
Off them corners, yeah.
And then there was some trickery that involved Omar, which then got Omar to shoot Brother Mozone. And then he was like, yeah, I don't care. You've got the wrong man.
Yeah.
You're just lying to live. I've met peace with my God. And then Omar turned into a donkey.
Yes, he did.
The look on Omar's face when he's calling the police, by the way, it's priceless. Just, yeah, somebody been shot, just rolling his eyes. I'm dumb. Sorry. So, yeah, he was totally manipulated into shooting Brother Mozone. And now, Avon told Stringer, look, handle it the way you're going to handle things. Share territory with Joe, but when I come home, shit's going to change. Well, this season, he comes home. At the end of season 2, after the conclusion of the court case, Daniels got his wish. He got his unit turned into a major case squad. They had the picture of Prop Joe and Stringer talking. So when we pick up season 3, they are trying to get a wire on Stringer and Prop Joe's people. I think they're focusing on Prop Joe at this point. And they're hoping to, if they can take down one guy, they'll promote the right guy, or the wrong guy, as it were, and then get a wire up on him. This leads to the infamous dogfighting scene with Method Man.
Oh, somebody killed my dog.
Somebody tell us about your dog. Some cold motherfuckers. But the murder rates are climbing, and this leads into the politics of the season. We are introduced to Councilman Carcetti. We get a closer look at the mayor's organization. Daniel's wife Marla is taking a run in a council seat. We get a look at that. We don't really get to meet Yanetta. Like, we see her here and there throughout the season, but she doesn't really do much of anything. She's just sort of described as sort of a hump councilwoman. But this is the season where it's mostly about Carcetti trying to gain favor with the police chief so that he can make a run at the mayor. And there's a great bit of manipulation this season as he tries to get another black council member to run, just so he can peel votes off the black mayor. And as the white guy in the race, take advantage. Politics.
Mm-hmm.
But Jesse, and this is where I want to start tonight. The best part of this season, really the key feature of this season, and one of the reasons why it's not my favorite, because we talked about last season being my favorite, the port season. This is a close second. And sometimes in the years that I've lived and watched the show, it was my first favorite. Amsterdam.
Oh, Amsterdam.
Drug legalization. I didn't legalize drugs, Jesse.
That's
I
right.
just elected not to enforce the rules.
Exactly.
In order to keep the murder rate down in the Western District, Major Bunny Colvin, Rope Bunny Colvin, he identifies 3 vacant apartment areas, 3 vacant blocks of vacant homes, and says these are designated drug areas. You can deal drugs as long as there's no violence. And they proceed to do so over the course of season 3. And what do you know? The murder rate drops.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure.
Right.
But at what cost, Jesse? At what cost?
All right. Yeah. I think that is probably why this sticks out as my favorite so far. And I should say so far, because I haven't had a chance to finish season 4 yet. So, that's still on the plate. But this experiment that Major Colvin does is extremely interesting. And it's great to watch it unfold, not only with the politics side of things, but with the effect that it has on the communities as well. And then you get to watch like what seems to be a great turnaround. Hey, crime's dropped, but then you go into Amsterdam and you start looking around and you start seeing some of the stuff. He's friends. Is it a deacon or he's friends with somebody in the church? And
some sort of high church. Yeah. By the way,
right.
Did you know that that's like an actual drug dealer? Like, have you listened to the podcast or watched any of the documentaries where they talk about how they use locals?
I do know they use locals, but I didn't know that the preacher or
he's
church
like
guy.
He's like an ex-drug dealer, which is hilarious.
Oh wow! Well,
I tell you what. I mean, of all the extras, he does a great job. Of all the real life people that they use in The Wire for this and that role, I was convinced he was a real actor. He's
right.
Excellent.
So did I. I had no idea. But yeah, his confidant in the church he's as Colvin's talking to him and saying, yeah, this is actually working. This is working for me. He's like, well, let's go take a look. And he goes down there. He's like, okay, well,
what the hell did you do here, Bunny?
Yeah. What are you, where's the electricity? Where's the running water? And he's got a great point. Like you've brought all these people to one spot. They stay in this one spot. And not only that, like watching the effect of what he is doing on the drug operations themselves. Like there's no need for runners anymore.
Right.
There's no need for, that all starts to trickle down where there's just kids hanging around, not going to school and just screwing around because they don't have anything to do.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because the season opens with Carver. Carver left Daniel's squad after him and Herc felt like, as they put it, like they were their mules. They're like, we're going to go to the Western, and they're in the Western drug enforcement unit. And so it opens with them, in this big ass operation where they're using all these cars and a helicopter to grab a 9-year-old kid as he runs with drugs.
Right.
That was the big operation. And Colvin even says that to him. He was like, you use like half my resources for what? Like what charge you have on them? It's just, what was it Herc said? Like being an asshole in a public area.
Yeah.
But it's meant to illustrate the futility of drug enforcement, that there's a lot of expenditure. There's a lot of expenditure for not a lot of gain. The juice isn't worth the squeeze, as one of my coworkers would say.
Yeah.
And so Carver has a really great arc in season 3, because he starts out as all like Semper Fi about the whole thing. He's like, I am here to jack up children and take their
Right.
drugs. That is what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Like there's a bit later on when Colvin gets the idea of the free zones, as he calls them, Amsterdam, he goes to Carver and he says, get me the drug lieutenants, get me the local drug lieutenants of all the different operations. And and Carver's like, I don't know who any of these people are.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think what is this? He was like, I was just supposed to jack up people, not take a census.
Right.
And you could just see Carver, you could just see Colvin's face. It's like, everything about you is terrible.
Yeah, he starts to realize that Carver is just
Useless.
about one thing.
And
it's good that he has the sit down with him to explain to him about what good policing is versus being a soldier, I think is what he says.
He
compares being
he has a line. I'll let you finish what you were saying, but he has a line. It's really important that I get this out. He was like, who are you going to talk to when the shit goes down? You don't know anybody. You don't know who these people are. Anybody. He's like, when it comes to being a supervisor, you know your stuff, but you are not policing. You're soldiering. Right. And go ahead. I'll let you say the next line.
And you said exactly what I was going to say. Like this is something where Carver has to realize there's a lot more mental ability that goes into policing than just soldiering.
Right.
But what is if you know the rest of it off the top of your head, go ahead and say it. I certainly don't.
The problem with fighting a war is that it makes everyone your enemy.
Right.
And that is what's happened with Herc and Carver. Daniels makes a very similar point, I think, in season 4 or 5, where for decades they've allowed the police to become militarized. And because they're militarized, they're not police anymore. They're soldiers. What do soldiers do? Kill the enemy. I mean, that's a way big oversimplification. There are obviously soldiers who get to know the locals and do like social service work, for lack of a better phrase. But the bigger point that they're making, the more general point, is they have been taught and they have been raised in the Baltimore police in this era that the drug dealers, the people in the community, these children that are out there, they're the enemy. And they are treated as such, and they are not talked to. They are not gone to for any kind of information. And so there's this wall between the police and the locals. The locals don't want to talk to the police. They see the police as the enemy. They are an invading force, Right. And then the police don't see the locals, as community members. They just see them as, I think Carver described it as like people, as combatants in occupied territory.
Right.
Colvin is about saving the Western District. He's about saving the community, and there's a tacit recognition, and this is why I've always been a proponent of drug decriminalization.
Sure.
I'm all for definitely some of the harder stuff for like prescription drug programs, prescription heroin, that sort of thing, and there's a whole other topic we can get into at a later date. But there are all kinds of harm reduction methods for dealing with the drug trade. And Colvin, at least on some level, recognizes that people are always going to want to do drugs. That's not going to change. I think Chris Rock said that you could take all the drugs off the planet, somebody will invent something new. Like he said it more funny than that. It was something about a baby's bottle, and that motherfucker will smoke it. But that's the point. People are in pain. Not everybody has the spoons, the equipment, the mental fortitude to deal with their pain, and so they mask it with drugs and alcohol. That's just life. So rather than treat people who are sick, people who are in need, as enemy combatants, Colvin said, look, let's just get them away from the rest of the community that's worth saving and bring them to this area that is basically dead, which is hilarious when you think about it, because at the end of it, when this all comes to a head and they figured out what's happened, and you have Rawls going, this motherfucker, he's legalized drugs. Like, don't actually, his line is actually, don't you understand, you idiot? He's legalized drugs. He's like, I didn't legalize it. I just elected to not enforce it.
I just ignored it. Right.
That's some equivocating motherfucker right there. But at the end of it, the mayor has the entire vacant lot like bulldozed.
Oh yeah, there's nothing left. It's like Bubs' line is like it's like they took a big eraser to it.
Yep.
One of the things that just kind of hit me as we were talking about this whole thing, what you mentioned the militarization of the police.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the whole Amsterdam thing, what was the one thing that brought it all down? The drug dealers and everything that, and the users, everything was kind of working there. I mean, every once in a while they'd have an issue, specifically a body showed up. One murder showed up. But the person that decided to bring it all down was Herc. Herc hit a breaking point. And so it was really...
I can't remember the guy that looks like Frankenstein in that group, but he was ready to explode.
Yeah, he was pissed most of the time, but it was Herc that finally was like, fuck this. I think Carver asked him to help move the body in order to make sure that, there wasn't a light shown on this. And Herc's like, I'm not doing that. And then finally something broke with him. But the point I'm trying to make is that it was the police. Yeah. I think Herc and the rest, like Frankenstein, Herc and were just used to, and they love it. They loved, banging on these dealers and locking them up, putting the cuffs on them and going to war.
I am not here to talk badly about law enforcement.
Well, sure.
It's partially because I work with them, but also in part because not every law enforcement person is a bad person. But I think any position of authority, whether it be law enforcement or anything where you wield even a modicum of power, lends itself to bullying and bullies. I think people who have a need to exert power over others are definitely drawn to careers like that. Not everybody, obviously, and and people who are like that may end up in other places. So it's not a complete 1-to-1. But I think Herc and that group is a really great example of the ones that are absolutely drawn to positions of power because they just have a need. They have their own trauma that they're dealing with, and they feel the need to express it by beating on children. Right. And that's what it is.
Unless there's a computer game involved, hey, let's get the kids on the make-a-face. Look what they're doing.
You got one that does asses? That's a great
That's a great line.
Oh, so good. I want to go back to Carver for 1 second, and I want to dovetail this right back to where we started with the deacon, because you brought up how the entire system of dealing drugs breaks down. Once you don't need lookouts, once you don't need hoppers, once you don't need runners, all you have is the one guy who's got the drugs.
Yeah.
And he sells the drugs, he takes the money, sells the drugs, takes the money. It's so funny because we talked about with season 2, the collapse of the working class. Once you have either shipped the jobs overseas or replaced everybody with a robot, your entire fucking local civilization breaks down.
Right.
Everybody that works in the warehouse or in the factory is now unemployed. All the people around them in the service industry, the people who work at gas stations, the people who work in restaurants, they're now out. No one's spending money in those places because they don't have any because they're out of a job. Now you've got kids going hungry, going to school, and the teachers are having to deal. You start to see once the major component that employs the people that keeps the whole thing running evaporates, just breaks down, disappears, it ripples out into the rest of the community.
Right.
And you see it with drug dealers, which is great. What a comparison. So once they're allowed to deal drugs, you have all of these kids that were caught up in this very organized system, just feral children, essentially, just roaming free.
Yeah.
And Carver, over the course of season 3, goes from military captain to police. He starts recognizing that this is happening, and he has a crisis of conscience, as it were, and he gets the drug dealers to pay out essentially unemployment.
Right.
He's like,
which, by the way, best and most accurate description of unemployment that I've ever heard on a TV show.
Well, you know what? You actually work at unemployment, so you want to quick say what you're talking about?
Well, a lot of people, even some of the higher government officials, think that you as a worker pay into unemployment. You don't. It is the employers that do. Employers pay into this insurance fund. And when you become unemployed, if you lost your job as to no fault of your own, you can get some assistance from that fund.
Right.
Every other time I've heard it described from anybody else on a show or whatever, it is always, I paid into that, and granted, unemployment doesn't come up, especially the unemployment fund or whatever, doesn't come up too often, but I love to see that Carver understood it. I'm so glad.
That's good stuff. So first he makes the drug lieutenants that are down there pay out to the kids, and he uses to buy a basketball net. Which also leads to one of my favorite lines of season 3, where Cuddy, we need to talk about Cuddy. Cuddy from the Cut walks up to Carver and he says something about like the kids, and Carver sort of looks at him and is like, is that just like a drive-by fuck you, or are you actually going to help out here?
Right.
Curbside is what it was. Is this a curbside fuck you, or are you going to help? And Cuddy, leading into his big arc in seasons 4 and 5, takes on some of the drug kids to teach them how to box. And I want to clean up with Carver and the Deacon, and then we can dovetail back into Cuddy.
Sure.
But one of the things that happens towards the end of season 3 is, for a while there, it's just drug dealing. It's just sort of that antagonism between the cops and the drug dealers, and they would go back to it periodically. There's a great bit in the beginning where a handful of kids try it out to see if it's a trap or not, and nobody knows that they're there, so they're just like, we're gonna leave. There's no customers, and they have to like run around with the paddy wagon and grab junkies off the street and be like, I hear that WMD is the bomb.
The old white man saying that. It was hilarious.
You know who he was, right? That's what's his nuts from season 1.
Yeah, I recognized him. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he got bumped back to the road. To a beat cop at a homicide.
He's a beat cop.
At the end of season 1, and we don't really see him in season 2, and then he pops up here driving the paddy wagon, and he has a great line too, where he's just like, "This is the best gig I ever had."
He loves it. He absolutely loves what he's doing, and
you
that
call, we haul.
I think what happens at the end here.
Yes. So anyway, they had to go grab a bunch of drug dealers and like direct them to the drug dealers, and they're like, there they are, just hawking their drugs, just as loud as can be. But what the Deacon figures out, and what starts to happen, is it's like, we've never had every single problem in this city concentrated in one area. Just one.
Right.
Sorry. Something just... What the hell is that? To ask her what that... Oh, okay.
Momentarily distracted.
Yeah, I got it. Sorry. So anywho... they're like, we have every problem we have in the city is concentrated into these 3 areas. And this is talking about like needle exchanges, condom depots, like every social ailment, right, is right there to deal with. And so like social workers converge on the place.
Right. You want to try to make an impact to actually curb these problems. Here you go. Here they all are in one little spot.
That's the brilliance of it, because on the one hand, it was done as a crime measurement. It was essentially, let's get all the drug dealers here. Let's get all the drug addicts here. They'll leave. They'll leave. It was about getting the drug dealers off the corners around the neighborhood and just focusing them in one area. And when that happens, you see, over the course of the season, you see people like painting their stoops. You see people sweeping. You see what looks like a community again. Oof, we got to talk about Bunk and Omar, by the way. But you start to see the community come back to life, at least briefly. And so Colvin doesn't even realize what he's done, because he was just about lowering the murder rate and making some safe areas of the city. He doesn't even realize what he did was provide a place for easy access to the most vulnerable people in the city, to have reach out, to have, social workers come in and work with them. And it all comes down because the mayor gets a visit by the federal government that basically says, this is now 20 years ago, okay? Right. The Wire season 3 debuted in 2004. We're better now than we were 20 years ago, but we're still not. You still say drug decriminalization to people, and everyone gets the willies.
Oh yeah,
There's definitely still resistance to this. It's better. Harm reduction has taken some degree of root, but not a lot. And at that time, they're standing over the mayor basically like, and we will cut all your funding ever from the federal government. You will get nothing. Good day, sir.
$500 million.
Yeah, because there is when you like, Colvin has like a stack of letters from the community going, thank you for this. Like, it's one of those deals where, and this will be the last thing I say, and then we'll move on. It's one of those deals where they realize they've got a great thing going here, but it's scary because for 100 years, drug addicts were the enemy. Right. You think about, not to go off on a tangent about the history of drug laws, but I think it's the Harrison Narcotic Act that criminalized opiates, was done on behalf of like white women post Civil War who got addicted to morphine. The marijuana laws were very much targeted against Mexicans and blacks, specifically blacks in the jazz movement. The history of drug criminalization and drug laws has a lot, not everything, but a lot to do with persecution of various minorities. And also, if you ever wanted to get, middle-class white people to vote for you, make crime your issue. How do you make crime your issue? Attack the drug dealers. And so, and then what starts to happen is you have a military that doesn't have an enemy, but they've got all this equipment. They got to do something with it.
Right.
That's why you have police forces with fucking Humvees.
Yeah.
Like, you ever see some of the documentary footage, especially from like when, the NWA, not the National Wrestling Alliance, the other one, the other NWA would or Ice-T or something would like talk about Crenshaw and Compton and all of that. And you see fucking military vehicles with battering rams, but painted police.
Oh my god!
They got that shit from the military. So it's sort of a self-perpetuating cycle of first persecution and then militarization, and that's how you end up with guys like Herc, who at the end, and this is what I wanted to say to end this bit, who at the end doesn't know any better. That's all he's ever known, and who's to blame him? He grew up in a world where drug dealers were the enemy. He became a cop and was reinforced that drug dealers are the enemy. And then he is promoted and given raises by going after he did a good job. When you turn that on its head, and from the federal government on down, you have people going, this is not the way we do business. Yeah. This is not how things are done. We don't decriminalize drugs. We don't legalize drugs. We don't try to treat drug dealers. We imprison them. We beat on them. That's how things are done. And then, somebody tries to say, but what if there's another way? And they're like, nope, we're not hearing that shit.
Right.
Not for the last 100 years. We're not starting now. It is hard to make change. Reform, Lamar. Reform.
Yes, indeed. Slow train coming.
I'll let you pick Cuddy or Omar and Bunk, because if I don't talk about Omar and Bunk, I'm going to be mad at myself.
Okay, well, let's do Omar and Bunk first then.
Okay. So last season, I think Omar got with Kimmy and Tasha, and they started partnering up to rob people, and they're continuing to do so this season, which leads to Tasha getting Bolt in the head. I think at some point or other, Stringer picks up on Omar's scent again. Oh, it's because there's a bit where they keep going after Avon's people, and Kimmy and Tasha are like, what the F? And then I think Tasha gets killed in the process. And so after a while, Kimmy's like, if we don't start going after some other people, I'm leaving. And so they do for a while.
She's in it for the money. She's not in it for the war.
There's a bit there where I think that there's even a scene where they come in with like a bag of drugs and money, and Kimmy's like, Eastside wasn't ready for us. So that happens for a while, but for whatever reason, they pick up on the scent of Omar again, and they go after him. And this is where the two idiots are sitting on Omar, and it happens to be on a Sunday.
Oh, the Sunday truce.
Yes.
Oh man,
on a church Sunday.
A poor granny's crown, church crown.
A bona fide cuddle woman.
Man.
Yeah, they're tailing Omar, and Omar's in his Sunday best, and he's taking his dear old grandma to church, and he's putting her in the cab, and they fucking shoot him. And there's a whole bit. I don't mean to laugh because it's really sad, actually. But there's a whole bit after that where Omar's like freaking out about it. He's like, "That woman think I work in a cafeteria." She doesn't know what I'm doing. She's like, "Why are people shooting at us?" And then he's like, "This shit got to end." And that is when Brother Mozone comes back to town. And him and Omar team up to tail Stringer. And I think they are at some point giving Stringer. It's Avon that gives it up to Brother Mozone. But I'm actually getting away from the central thing. So there's a bit with Carver's group where they do a drug deal. It goes bad. And Dozerman gets shot and he loses his gun. His gun ends up in the street somewhere.
Right.
And so Bunk gets assigned Tasha's murder. That's why these things are linked. Bunk gets assigned Tasha's murder, but he can't work it because the priority is to get Dozerman's gun, which just so people understand, they have to find a 9mm handgun in Baltimore somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a point where Bunk is on a computer and he goes, "I'm in the haystack looking for this gun." Because that's pretty much what it is. It's a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. He's told he may be held by a guy named Peanut. And he like searches Peanut in the computer. There's like 100 of them.
Damn.
Bunk spends a majority of the season looking for this stupid gun. But he's also trying to work Tasha's murder. And this is when he goes to see Bruiser. And Bruiser tells him Omar was there. This was Omar's thing. And that's what happened. This was the gunfight. It was Omar, his people. And I don't think he knew it was the Avon group. But the Barksdale people, but he was just like, but definitely Omar was there because Omar grew up in that neighborhood. And Bunk's trying to get his story locked in, and Jay pulls up. He's like, "Go find the gun." So by the time,
excuse me, fine citizen, would you happen to know where this gun would be?
Right?
Oh no, okay.
and so Bunk, finally he does a whole thing, and he gets Jay to get off his ass for a while, and he goes to work Tasha's murder. But by that point, Omar has gone to see Bruiser. And he's like, "Telling tales, Bruiser?" And Bruiser's like, "No, sir, not me." Mm-hmm. And so when Bunk goes to see Tasha's people, and he eventually ends up seeing Omar. And Omar goes to compare season 1 where Omar was cooperative with what a dick he is to Bunk this time around. When he has no reason to cooperate, and he's just Omar, what an asshole he is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they aren't getting along. And I thought it was real interesting when he does finally have his conversation with him about how Bunk knew who he was from school.
Yeah.
And, they had a I wouldn't say a history, but he knew who he was. And he knew the neighborhood he grew up in. They made that connection in season 1 because you'll remember he was just like, "Didn't you play that game with the stick?" He was like, "Lacrosse." It's like, "Yeah, that's the one." Yeah. That's right. That's why he said I was a few years ahead of you at Edmondson. So he goes to talk to Omar, and Omar's only going to talk to him to say, "Stop sniffing around my people. No one's going to talk to you." At which point Bunk loses his fucking mind. Yeah. And
he gives one of the great monologues in television history. It starts off with, "I was a few years ahead of you at Edmondson," and it gets into he starts talking about like the hard cases in his neighborhood that were looking out for him, that he wanted to be one of them. He wanted to be a roughneck, but they were like, "Go homeschool, boy. This is not the place for you." And he didn't know that they were looking out for him at the time because he wanted to be a cool kid too. It's not cool to be successful and nerdy. But they were saying that no, this is not the place for you, schoolboy. And he said, no matter what kind of people we had in the neighborhood, no matter how hard it got, we had a community. And now all we have are bodies. And it's because of predatory motherfuckers like you. That line hits me so hard every single time. Like, I don't have a way of personally relating to it. I mean, yeah, I grew up in a slightly rough neighborhood, but not like that. Not the way he's describing it. Right. And I certainly don't have any way to relate to, all we have are bodies. But the power of his delivery in that scene, it's so good. And Omar's reaction to it after he walks away, where you see it's one single tear and he spits and just drools down his chin. I don't know how much of that was direction or how much of that was Michael K. White being a brilliant actor.
Right.
But I mean, like, chef's kiss. It's really, it is a brilliantly delivered monologue, and Michael K. White's reaction to it is every bit as brilliant.
Yeah. You could tell that, you know, Omar, as comfortable as he is being Omar, you know, he's fine robbing people. Especially drug dealers.
What is it? What she says to him?
That.
Conscience due cost.
Yeah, right. When Bunk brings up the fact that, you know, there was kids running around acting like him, you know, I think that definitely struck a chord in Omar. Like, you know, I think that he's comfortable being himself, but he doesn't want somebody else. He definitely doesn't want somebody else being in his shoes or following in his footsteps.
Think about Omar's character. Think about the courtroom scene in season 2, where, you know, he's like, we're both preying on the community,
right,
by attacking in our own way the drug trade. You're a lawyer, but you set drug dealers free. I rob drug dealers. We are both thriving on the misery of this community.
Right.
But I think as long as he could focus on drug dealers, like you're saying, he was fine. When he got made to look at the damage he was causing to the community, because it's one thing to, you know, shoot Mike in his hindparts. You know, it's one thing to rob Avon and his people. It's a whole other thing when someone happens to point out that you're destroying the perfectly innocent people in this community as well.
Right.
The ones that are not drug dealers, the ones that are not drug addicts, drug users, you are hurting children. You are hurting this community.
Yeah.
And, you know, and he's like, every man, like, he equivocates by saying every man must have a code. I never point my gun at no citizen. You didn't have to, Omar. You destroyed this community by being a part of this in your own way.
Right.
And when Bunk points that out to him, that's when he kind of has like a mental collapse about it. And he goes to Butchie, go blam Butchie. And he's like, I can't live with myself. Like Bunk said something and I can't sleep now. And Butchie's like, what's the plan here? Guy who robs drug dealers.
Right.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And that's when he figures out that the way to at least make it up, like he's obviously not going to give himself up. He's not going to talk about who and what killed Tasha, but he's more than happy to go get Dozerman's gun back.
Go and get that gun, and which he does.
And that's how he makes peace with Bunk, which I think is kind of sweet.
That's good. Yeah. It's a good arc for both of those two, and you know, it's Omar's a great character. I mean, my goodness, I can't tell you. We just did a comic book podcast, and Omar came up just because of him being such a great character. We compared him. It wasn't me either. It wasn't the fact that I was doing these podcasts. It was somebody else that was on the podcast that brought him up. So that's how transcendent Omar is.
Omar is part of the fabric of American culture now, if not, you know, whatever other international culture knows about The Wire. Like because what do people know about The Wire? They know two things: Omar and shit.
I think we get that. I can't remember if we got that last season, but I know we got one of those this season.
Oh, he absolutely says it last season. I think it's the second season where they get what's his face's bag.
So he says, okay, all right.
I mean, like, not like by the end of season 5, he takes 20 minutes to get the whole.
I was going to say, yeah, we are.
Isaiah Whitlock is ridiculous by the end of season 5. But I think it's season 1 where they get Day-Day's bag, where he's just like, shit, you better tell this motherfucker. Earl, whatever the fuck his name is, the police commissioner. All right, I want to talk about Cuddy real quick. Cuddy from the Cut. Reform, Lamar. It's about reform. And here we have this guy who just did a nickel. No, he did a dime, right? It was like 10 years.
Actually, I think it was, well, I could be wrong, but I remember doing the math in my head, thinking that he's been in there since the 80s.
Yeah.
Like mid 80s to late 80s or something like that. So it might have been 15. It might have been 15, but go ahead.
He did a quite a long length of time in prison.
Right.
And he's getting out, and he goes through what a lot of people who get out of prison go through, which is the call to your old life, maybe because it's easier, maybe because that's just who you are. That's, you miss it.
That's what
maybe,
you know.
Maybe you don't have anything else. Maybe you try. And so he comes out. Avon gives him a package. He tries to get Fruit to sell the package for him. Fruit rips him off. That's a whole thing. Then he's like, well, maybe I'll try to get better, and I'll try to get a job, and I'll reconnect with my woman. And like the whole world has just moved on without him. So he's like, fuck it. I got nothing. I got nobody. Let me go ahead and go back to soldier work. And he gets to a point where he has fruit in his sights and he can't pull the trigger, at which point he's like, well, I got nobody and I got nothing, but I can't go back to killing people.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Right. What probably came easy to him before this is now something that it's a line he won't cross.
Yeah.
Even though, he had that kid dead to rights.
Oh, yeah. Fruit knew it, too.
Square. Yeah.
Shout out to that fucking actor, man. Fruit looked like he pissed his pants.
Right. So, yeah, Cuddy has to make a decision like, okay. And it's neat to see somebody go through that arc where they tried their best to go back to what they were doing, tried to go back into the drug game and decide, okay, well, I'm done. And you're thinking, oh man, well, good luck getting out of the drug game. He just walks up to, Avon and says, I'm out. Yeah. All right, you're out. Good luck.
Avon, and that's the thing about The Wire. Avon's not a bad dude.
No, he's not.
Just happens to be running a drug organization, but and we got to talk about this. He's myopic, and he is myopic about drugs and drug dealing, as the police and the mayor's office is about drug legalization.
Right.
It is an amazing comparison. I'm just a gangster, I suppose, and I want my corners. Okay. We found a perfectly good way to do this where everyone makes money and nobody dies, but sure. But yeah, back to sort of wrap up with Cuddy real quick. Cuddy is a great story. I don't always in rewatches, I don't always watch a lot of his scenes, but I like his story. And it ends with him deciding that the way to move forward, the way to give his life purpose is to work with kids and teach them the one thing he knows besides drugs is boxing.
Yeah, become a mentor.
Yep. And he has a fairly nice arc over the next 2 seasons. I like, and we'll talk about it when we get to seasons 4 and 5, but Cuddy becomes a much more interesting character over the course of seasons 4 and 5.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about Mcnulty, because this is as much the rise and fall of Mcnulty as it is the rise and fall of the Barksdale Organization. So McNulty is a fucking dog with a bone when it comes to Stringer. Like,
oh yeah,
this whole thing started with him recognizing that the vast majority of murders were let's face it, being committed by Weebay, and and maybe a little bit of Bird, but poor Weebay took murders for a sandwich. But the vast majority of murders were being committed by the Barksdale Organization. He was like, is anyone going to do anything about this? I guess I will. And he becomes like a crusader. And then because he got punished for it, for going outside the lines, he gets thrown on the boat. And so there's a bitterness to McNulty. But there's also like a condescension. Like he's like, there's a lot, that bit that he has with Lester where he's talking about all the swinging dicks that can do what they do. And there's not many of them. And Lester's like, Jesus Christ, do you have anything to do but besides be a cop? What do you think is going to happen when this case is over? He was like, another case. Like, you need more than this here, McNulty.
Gosh, Lester's my favorite, man.
Oh, Lester has a little, you are not worth the skin off my knuckles, Junior.
Oh, man.
I was like, whoo!
Yeah, buddy.
But the other great line when he and McNulty are fighting and McNulty leaves the room, he's like, go look at those properties. So good. After he's walked away. But I wanted to talk about McNulty because it's not rare you see McNulty be vulnerable. There's things where like when Kima gets shot and he's obviously riddled with guilt. There's times where he feels bad about himself, but not vulnerable. And this season, in dealing with the political consultant,
D'Agostino or something like that.
Yeah.
D'Agostino.
He has a line about her. Yeah. He has a line about her about how like she sees through him.
Looks right through me.
Yeah.
She looked right through me, Kima.
Because he talks about like, getting Stringer. We left this guy on the street. He's probably mocking me. Like he has become up. This isn't about policing anymore. And Daniels even makes this point. He's like, at some point, this isn't about policing anymore. This is about respect. This is about your stupid obsession with this one guy as if there's no other crime in this fucking city.
Right.
This is a personal thing with you now. This isn't about what's best for Baltimore.
It's clearly obvious. I mean, at the beginning of this, they've got a totally different target. This task force has a totally different target, and he's running out doing things trying to nail Stringer. He's not on the board.
He reinvestigates D'Angelo, which got written up as a suicide.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Just as a real quick, that line that he delivers to D'Angelo's mother, Brianna, that is a rough listen, man.
The one where he's talking about like, I don't give a fuck. I shouldn't give a fuck anyway.
When she says, why did you go to Dawnette and not me? He was like, honestly, because you're the one that made him take the years, right? Honestly, I was looking for somebody that might give a shit about the kid.
Right.
And she just fucking crumbles. It's just right there on screen. She was like Drax in fucking Infinity War. Just, just went all the pieces. But that's a rough exchange, man. To tell someone's mom you don't really care about this kid.
Yeah, and that really is one of the many kind of building blocks to the fall of the organization. Just him approaching her with this, and granted, it isn't huge. But
I don't know nothing about it, Brianna. Know nothing about what, Avon? Know nothing about what, Avon? He fucking gave himself away right there.
He knew. Yeah.
But yeah, so Mcnulty, it isn't until because he's so obsessed with Stringer. His obsession with Stringer is bigger than everything else around him. And then he's made to realize just how small it really is. Nobody gets through to Mcnulty until he goes on those dates with her and he suddenly feels like the most insignificant guy ever.
Yeah, he's just information with dick.
Yeah. But it makes him realize what Lester was telling him all along, which is you need something. He's not. Elena won't take him back. We established that in season 2. Good old Callie Thorne.
Callie Thorne, baby. Still looking fine.
But Callie Thorne. Can we after we're done with from the corner to the deuce, we just do an entire series of all things Callie Thorne.
Oh my goodness!
Just an hour of us just talking about Callie Thorne.
The cameras would be painted white. It's just unreal.
I'm not wearing any pants. Film at 11. Anywho, he's not gonna get back with Elena. She's just not gonna take him back. That's so he's trying to move on. But he's moving on as he was until he runs afoul of D'Agostino, and then he's like, maybe I need to be better. Maybe I do need something different. I need something more than this. And that's when he seeks out Beatty. Oh, Beatty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So one of my top moments from this season has to deal with Mcnulty and his love life. And it is when he's at the bar.
Oh, and he's talking to Daniels?
Yeah, he gets drunk. And this is after he's had the conversation with Daniels. He realizes, that he gets up to the phone. He grabs the phone and he's going to try and make a booty call or something,
Yeah.
And he's about to call and he realizes he has nobody to call. And it's really, really fucking sad because he just kind of sits there in his drunken state and then it all clicks. And he's like, shit. He just hangs the phone back up. I know a little something about giving too much of your life to one thing to the exclusion of all else. Sucks.
It really does. When you suddenly turn around, you're like, oh, I've wrecked everything around me. Yikes.
And the thing is, at one point he's like in a hotel with Kima, and I swear to goodness he's trying to get laid by Kima, who is not on his team.
No, you think so? When they're on the road chasing Bernard,
and she's like magic finger, and she starts talking magic fingers. He's like, he basically makes a comment like, I've got magic fingers. And he just kind of sits back and lays. I swear to goodness, he's trying.
With a lesbian. I don't think he was actually trying to get laid.
No, I legitimately think that he was that desperate to try and do anything to get laid.
I feel like he didn't even see her that way. That is, I have
That's
watched.
What I thought too. But I honestly,
I've watched season 3 like 100 times. I've never once picked that up.
I swear that he has got this stink of desperation on him this season.
Well, you also thought the
just
Orville
wants
was too
any
serious.
Kind of physical, any kind of physical relationship with anybody, just to have that. Now, they've been friends, sure, but I mean, they're in the hotel together, and Kima looks at him and is like, and can't make out. I mean, she's laughing it off, but I honestly think that if she would have said she was game, he would have been game.
Well, sure, he's a dog.
There you go.
You know, solving murders and fucking. That's all he's about. Which is the whole point. He's trying to be a little something about. He's trying to be about something a little bit more than murders and pussy.
All right, and that's a good arc for this guy, because he needs to realize that, okay, there's something else more out there that can make me happy. And
Daniels tells him after the final fucking betrayal, like, you're done in this unit.
Yeah, you're done, dude.
Figure out where you're gonna go, because I'm not gonna keep you. And and at the end, they give away the ending. Omar and my brother Mozone fucking shoot Stringer. They had Stringer dead to rights. They were going to arrest him. They were going to serve the warrant, but by that point he'd been shot full of holes.
And that one moment that Mcnulty has, I mean, that's what, just like you said, he's obsessed with Stringer.
Could you
Stringer
imagine,
lying there dead, and he looks over at Bunk.
That you have been obsessed with taking down one guy, and when you get there, you finally get right to the. It's like, what do I always say? It's like having the best sex of your life, and right before you come, the girl says, "Yuck, get off me."
Right. Right.
What?
And he looks over at Bunk and he's like, I had him, and he doesn't know it. He never, and he's dead. And I didn't get the chance to tell him, pretty much.
It goes to the futility it goes to the futility of obsession.
Yeah.
It's just it's not worth it to become that myopic about things and, that single focused.
And again, that's something that I think spurs Mcnulty on to make a decision to be comfortable with the fact that he's not going to be on this squad anymore. Yep.
And then he goes back to the Western. And at the end, after all that stuff that Colvin said about walk your beat, know your post, talk to your people. There he is, flipping his baton, talking to the locals. The happiest he's ever going to look in this entire 5 seasons. And that includes the time he got laid by 2 Russian prostitutes.
That's great. Oh, right. Me and the wife laughed at that one. That was hilarious.
I can't perjure myself. Motherfucker, you've broken so many laws. Let's talk about the fall of the fall of Avon and Stringer. It's this season where he's talking to Shamrock, Stringer is, and it's at the co-op meeting, and he looks over. I can't decide if it was Stringer or Shamrock who decided to keep reading the book of like how to conduct a meeting or whatever the hell it was, but they keep referencing it. Like, if you'll recall, I think it's the beginning of the season with the funeral parlor, and I can't remember if it's this season or that reminds me, I wanted to do a bit to open up the show. I sent it to you.
Well, late now, Mark.
I said, no, fuck it. We're doing the bit. But is it this season or the previous season where they're talking about like they're talking about getting everyone to sign on the getting all the other drug organizations to come in on the package and share territory, and they're like, chair recognizes. They have to keep saying chair recognizes because if people are asking questions. And fucking Pook goes, does the chair recognize that we're going to look like a bunch of bitches? Hey, Jesse, pull up your messenger for a second. And go to the
I have it right here in front of me. Okay. Who am I playing the part of?
Okay. Okay, you're Slim.
Okay. All right.
Ready?
You ready?
Yeah,
All
go.
right, here we go. Boss, I reached out to Black Donnie.
Okay, spit it out, man. Listen, stop fucking double talking me.
Black Donnie said he ain't having any of it. Said Brother Mouzone put a hex on all of us.
What about Peacock?
Peacock went and hired out with some Dominicans.
What about Eggy Mule?
Eggy locked up, caught a nickel with feds for a pistol.
How about Shorty Boyd?
Shorty Boyd went and cleaned his whole act up. Yeah, I know. Fucked us all up.
What we got?
Soldier you sent at us, Cuddy. He gonna work out, but the rest of them dudes, I don't know.
Listen, Juicy J. You about to earn your fucking keep around here. Heard? You go out, get Cuddy, get the best of the rest, and put a hurting on Marlowe. Sorry. That whole, I don't know how much of that was fucking improvised. That is some great time. What about Eggy Mule? What about Peacock?
Eggy Mule?
Shorty,
Eggy Mule.
Shorty Boyd cleaned his whole act up. Don't you understand?
I should have came in here as Eggy Mule tonight, not Juicy J.
And featuring fucking Eggy Mule. All right.
Eggy Mule.
Another nickname for good old Chesty Starcher. I love that bit of dialogue. Just like honestly, that could have gone on for another 10 minutes, and it's just all random stupid ass names.
Just random names they're just throwing out.
What about Donkey Balls? What?
He caught one in the leg. He's still resting up.
What about Shamrock and Shenanigans? You know, got mixed up with
funny.
the Greek. He took a fucking dirt bath. Is what he did.
The Greek.
Anyway, so yes, Avon gets out of prison this season, and he comes back to see. And by this point, and this is something that Mcnulty brings up when he starts tailing him, Stringer's the bank. Stringer's developing. They've made so much money. They've cleaned so much money that their clean money now makes money.
Right.
They don't have to see another package for as long as they live. I think at one point Stringer says, "We'll never spend the money we've already made."
Yeah.
And he's just like, and so Avon, much like Mcnulty, what else is there? I don't know anything else. I don't know how to enjoy my wealth. I'm just a drug dealer. And like, it's an interesting thing because Avon's not stupid. And Avon is not necessarily a tremendously young man. He's not particularly what's the word I'm looking for? Like he's not somebody that's just like impulsive is the word I'm looking for. He's not particularly impulsive. He is thoughtful, but it's just an interesting thing that he, despite all of that, despite some level of insight that he has, despite some wisdom, despite some age on him, he's like, I have nothing else. I know nothing else. You know, they talk about this in season 1 about like this is D'Angelo brings this up. It's just generations of drug dealing. This is all these people know. So even when they're successful, even when they don't have to do it anymore, what is a life without purpose? And when your purpose has and always will be drug dealing, it's kind of hard to see something else to do. And that's exactly what Stringer wants for him. He's like, please, like, I want to make condos. I want to run, I want to be on the city council. I want to leave all of this behind. Come with me, brother. And Avon's like, no, I would prefer to kill Marlowe and everybody that looks like him and take my corners back. And Stringer is fucking beside himself. Just doesn't dude, I have been where Stringer is. We're just like, I have the better way. I have the sight.
Right.
See this is my third eye, and I have the sight. I know the answers. I know the way, and I am surrounded by people. And surrounded by people. It was like, nope, I only know there's one way to do it. And that's all we're doing. And you're like, why?
The only defense that I have for Avon is he's comfortable where he's at. I understand that. I actually empathize because it's really tough sometimes to step out of your comfort zone. As
do you, Mr. Life 360?
Hey, listen, I left the house today.
Oh my!
I got in my car. I drove. I was at least 5 miles from this house.
Were you able to find your way back?
I'm here. This is my house.
Okay.
This is my tablecloth behind
he's
me.
gonna pan right, and he's actually at a fucking 7-Eleven right now. Now
how do I get home? Somebody help me.
Broadcasting live from the Piggly Wiggly.
But I empathize with him. I really do. Like, Avon is comfortable where he's at. As dangerous as the game is, he's comfortable where he's at. And he also knows not to trust what's outside of his comfort zone.
Right.
And that is solidified and actually proven to be a very good reason for Avon not to trust anybody when Stringer runs into his problems with Clay. Clay, what was his last name? I can't remember his name.
Clay Davis.
Clay Davis, thank you.
Played by the great Isaiah Whitlock.
Yes. So, I mean, Avon knows that outside of this, they may be able to do a little bit more, but really just totally investing all of everything that he has in that. Stringer made the mistake. Stringer's a rookie at what he's doing. He may act like, he may
that exchange he has when he's like telling Clay he's ready to run as like a major developer, and Clay's like, you're not. You're still bitching about the money that you spend. You still have that gangster mentality. You're not ready for this. And then and then he's like, all right, we'll go talk to the faucet. We're going to talk to the goose. What goose? The goose that lays the golden eggs. And
you got to listen to me, String.
When Maurice Levy tells him, did he tell you that he it was something about the rainmaker? He was
he rainmakered you. He basically said that he was going to make it rain. And when it doesn't rain, there's an excuse for it. But when it does, it's all him. He had his hand in his pocket, and String was like immediately like putting a hit out on him. Wanting to put a hit out on Clay,
and even
Clay Davis.
And even Slim Charles is like, no, I'm not attacking a state senator.
Yeah, that's called assassination. We're not going to do that.
Look, it is one thing to bust a cap and Mike Mike's hind parts. It is a whole other kettle of fish to be shooting state senators.
But yeah, you can see right there what you're talking about is the division between Avon and Stringer. But there's so much more. I mean, Avon finally gets to learn that Stringer was behind the killing of D. And that, I mean, my goodness, that's going to weigh heavy on you. And then you have to keep that. You have to keep that a secret from your own sister,
that
the boy's
line.
own mother.
That line is just like, I don't think you were ever, I don't think you were ever, you're not smart enough for them out there, and you're not hard enough for this right here. And Stringer's like, I killed your nephew, but hard enough for that, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And Avon's like, excuse me, partner. So it's just, you got to, over this course of season 3, you get to watch this really solid friendship completely fall apart to the point where, and it's not just falling apart. Avon doesn't understand where Stringer's coming from and has watched him fuck up. Everything from, you don't give away territory. You don't share territory. This co-op idea of yours is worth a shit. There was another way to do this. And they're like, you're not selling me on any of this by your inability to get your condos made, to get this Clay Davis guy to do what he's supposed to do for you. Everything you're doing is terrible. That's Avon's point of view. Prove me wrong. And Stringer is looking at Avon going, dude, we have so much money. There's no reason for us to be gangsters anymore. We should ascend.
Yeah.
And when he won't do it, when he's like, he just feels like he's dragging Avon along. He's like, fuck it, I'll just have you arrested again. I don't even care anymore. I'm done with this. I am done.
Yeah.
I am done trying to explain 2 + 2 to a fucking moron.
Right.
That is why they are at loggerheads.
That dissolving, that dissolution of their union, and to watch Stringer go to Colvin with that information, like, here's the safe house, and then Mcnulty laying that affidavit the warrant, laying that warrant out in front of him and says, take a long look, read it slow, and there it is. Avon reads that after they do the raid on Avon's, it was Stringer that gave him the information. That was when you watch Omar and Stringer have their final moments,
get on with it, motherfucker.
some good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Some real good stuff. And I think that also is another reason why I think this is probably my favorite season so far, is the fact that we get those two finally having it out, and Omar has his revenge, if you will. Stringer made some bad calls, given the go ahead to shoot somebody on a Sunday.
Well, that's what Avon tells him. It was just like, I understand you were trying to run this like a business, but even said he has that one line about like, this isn't about your fucking business class.
Right.
Look, 9 out of 10 times I kind of take Stringer aside. How much money do you need? How much illegal money do you need? You're making straight money, like ascend, evolve, be something else.
Sure.
And so I sympathize with Stringer's point of view, but I also see that one piece of what Avon's talking about, because by the same token, you chose to be a criminal. Certain things you got to do as a criminal. You don't want to do those things. Don't be a criminal. It's interesting that they wrote it the way they did, because they didn't take the path of why doesn't Stringer just walk away. Like at the end where they raid his apartment after he's died, and he's seeing like it's like an upper class apartment.
Oh yeah, it's very
condo, whatever the fuck
posh.
he's living in. He's like, very posh. He's got like samurai swords. He's got all these great literature, Sun Tzu and all this other stuff. And fucking Mcnulty's looking around going, the fuck was I chasing?
Right. He couldn't believe it.
I mean, you often wonder like why Stringer didn't walk away. And it makes me think, as I say that out loud, about something D'Angelo said, like nobody walks away from this. Nobody.
Right.
Which makes what he does with Cuddy so interesting, because he lets Cuddy just walk away. Like,
right.
Fine. Lots of luck to you.
Yeah.
And I think even everyone was surprised that he just shoot Cuddy in the back as he's walking out of the funeral home.
Yeah, right.
All right, Jesse. Yeah. It's time. Your top moments.
Okay. Well, I don't really have a list since I just finished the series.
Let me go ahead and get out of here then.
Okay, let's close up top. I don't think so, you funny guy.
That's the second joke.
I've got one moment we did not discuss.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guess what it is?
Well, no one takes their cock out in this season, so I'm out of ideas.
Prez.
Which part?
The part where he shoots a fucking cop.
Oh, nah. What?
That wasn't that big of a deal. Like, Prez, this guy, this wonderkind, the guy who's like now on the Wire team, and like, we were so excited that look at him go. And then he goes out, there's a call while they're getting Chinese. And the next thing you know, he shoots an undercover cop in the fucking head.
I'll tell you what, it does give way to a great line from this season. He was like, I'm under indictment for failure to identify myself as a police officer. I feel like that's been my whole career.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, I mean,
what was it? The other thing is like he gets a grand jury indictment, and it's just like three out of 4, 3 out of 7 think I'm a racist asshole. 4 out of 7 think I'm just an asshole.
Right? Yeah. That was Freeman. Lester said, "Well, just look on the bright side. 3 of them just think you're an asshole." Yeah. I mean, that was a big moment. I remember when we were watching it, I forgot all about that. I forgot that he had shot somebody. And
I guess because I know what happens to Pratt. First of all, it isn't like when Kima got shot, where it's a known quantity throughout the show. You're sympathetic towards Kima. She gets really fucked up. It's a meaningful scene. Prez shooting the cop is a setup to season 4. It doesn't resonate with me as much.
Okay, well, it's kind of a big deal to me. I'm sitting there watching Prez. He's enjoying what he's doing. He's actually doing some real police work, putting some, drawing some lines to some criminals and doing the Wire. And then, all that promise just shot down in one night.
Yeah, but now he's going to teach probability to young black children.
I would have known this back when I was watching it in 2004. I had no idea. I've been like, oh, damn, Prez. How you going to do Prez like this?
No, not Prez. Not the guy who blinded a kid in fucking season 1.
He's redeeming himself.
You're right, Jesse. He certainly knows how to organize a fucking tack board.
Look at those push pins, Mark.
They're very organized.
Actually, I think at one point he had the fucking ruler out, if I remember correctly. Like he had a ruler out, and I was like, "Are you fucking serious? A ruler? What the hell is that? Some kind of department regulation?"
I'll be the first to tell you, him organizing in the cold open, him organizing the thumbtack board to walk the line is fucking great.
It was good stuff. I mean, we get. Side note, our district attorney or prosecuting attorney, however it is, and our now major Cedric Daniels are seeing each other. I can't remember if they were seeing each other at the end of last season or not, but they were definitely
that started in season 3.
This ending montage of him having relations with her was Cuddy was beating on a bag while he was pounding that meat. But yeah, I mean that's the only other real kind of thing I want to talk about that or I wanted to bring up. So, Bubs shows up. Didn't say a lot about Bubs. Bubs loses his friend to some. He's the first body that's found in this.
Johnny
shouldn't say first body.
Johnny overdoes it.
Yep. Yes, he does. But yeah, man, it's a good season. Like I said, I really did like season 3. I think it's one of my favorite, especially the social experiment of Amsterdam. I think that is I'm glad we started off with that because I think that's the big piece, obviously, coming out of this season. So,
all right. Well, that is our hour-long-ish discussion of The Wire season 3. This is less a review and more of like a recap. This is just like, I mean, when stuff comes up that I want to talk about as an issue, like we did with Amsterdam. But the rest of it, I'm just noticing as I think back about this conversation about season 2, it's just like, I like this part. Like that's so not us, but that's what this has become.
Remember this line?
Remember this line? Remember that? Oh, that was cool. Like, we should both turn into fucking Chris Farley.
Oh, we talked about arcs and the important things of these characters. I think we did a fine job.
All we got is bodies.
Right.
Good stuff. All right. As far as season 4, if you liked me and Jesse, remember when The Wire? Remember The Wire? November 16th.
Pembridge Farm remembers.
All right. The Wire Memberberries cast is November 16th at 9:00, unless I have a hot date or something, in which case I'm going to change it because, whatever. But and then The Wire, we conclude just before New Year's with season 5 of The Wire, December 29th. So check that out. As far as
into uncharted territory for me at that point, because I have not got past halfway through 4th season. So,
wait till you see season 5.
Oh boy,
dinosaurs.
I wasn't expecting that.
The Wire time travel.
Oh my gosh,
it's gonna be your favorite season ever, Jesse.
I've heard of jumping to shark. I don't know what the hell that would be.
The best part of season 5 is when they save the clock tower.
I
know. All right. What did we do this week on the Rad Legend Broadcasting Network? Well, Sean Comer came back ever so briefly to talk Hellraiser 2022, currently exclusively on Hulu. Myself and Robert Winfrey.
Was it a good movie? I haven't listened to the review, but did you like it?
It's okay. Alexis Hana and Andrew Orozco from the MCU's Bleeding Edge and Geek News Network. They reviewed Werewolf by Night. Alexis is doing a great job with the TV parties. We really appreciate her because I have shit to do and I don't want to talk about this crap anymore.
All of a sudden, he's got a life, folks.
Yeah. So I was happy to pawn off television reviews on Alexis. Let's see. Tomorrow, speaking of Alexis. Now, I just said that, but I'm actually going to break my own rule here. I'm going to review season 1 of She-Hulk and ask me why, Jesse.
Oh, I would like to know why you're going to break your own rule and talk about the first season of She-Hulk.
Because there's something to talk about.
Okay.
And that is this like online fight over this show. It's anti-man, it's not anti-man, it's funny, it's not funny. About the only thing I agree with in terms of criticism is the CGI is fucking god awful. But there is a conversation to be had about what is actually anti-man and what is just something that you don't like as a man. There's a difference, and I'm going to talk about it. This was giving me She-Ra vibes. Do you remember that?
Ooh.
Remember
Yeah.
when I got all hot and bothered because they, DreamWorks was putting out a She-Ra cartoon that was LGBTQ positive, and parents were fucking flipping their fucking lids.
You used a bunch of letters. Oh.
They made She-Ra for the gays, Jesse. them gays.
And, I've heard a lot of discussion about the She-Hulk. As a matter of fact, I was on our good buddy.
MCU's
almost called him. Help me out, thank you. I almost called him Josh Calandros, who has not been a part of this network in about 10 years. Jeff Sloboda. Yes, I was on that show there last week talking about that with him, and there's
Jeff, you were there. Jeff and I almost got into a fucking fist fight over episode, was it 7, where he was like, every man was emasculated. Yeah, that's why I need to spend an hour now explaining why that's not the case. Also, take a drink every time I say there's more to Daredevil than Born Again, you fucking neckbeards.
Ooh.
Coming in hot.
Ooh.
Yeah, street level Starcher.
Ouch.
Daredevil had more than one story arc.
Man. Hot take.
It's not a hot take. It's the fucking truth. So anyway, I'll take all my hot takes and I will pour them out like someone's overstuffed purse tomorrow at noon. Me and Alexis will be talking She-Hulk. This weekend, we've got some canned ham for you. The Long Road to Ruin on the Crow movies. 1 good one and 3 what the fuck. Next week, we've got Ronnie Adams and I will be doing a Long Road to Ruin for the Of Michael Myers trilogy, which is Halloween 4, 5, and 6, I believe. Plus H2O, because, 4 movies in an hour. Sure, why not? And then Ronnie Adams, Jason Teasley, Robert Winfrey, and I will be reviewing Halloween Ends, which will be day and date on Peacock. Not a real service.
Not a real network.
Alexis Haina will be reviewing Midnight Club, I believe, with Robert Winfrey on Wednesday the 19th. And that's all for me. Thanks. I'm driving. Jesse, I hear you're unified. You're dropping some Unity.
Goodness. Unity.
UNITY.
You got it, baby.
Yep.
So, the Unspoken Issues podcast did a 4-episode spectacular. Just finished up today. It was a little bit of an intro episode, about 15 minutes long there on the 10th of October. And then the 11th through the 13th, all 18 chapters were discussed in 3 different episodes there of Valiant's Unity. So if you like Valiant comics from back in the 90s, this was at an event that was done by Valiant Comics in 1992. One of the largest, one of the biggest events, and according to Dean Compton, one of the best events that happened back in the 90s. So check that out if you like Valiant Comics. We had a great time discussing it. We went through all 18 chapters, tried to keep it as quick but as interesting as possible. Also, you can check out myself and Mark Radulich this coming Monday. We're going to be talking World War III. That is correct. DC's World War III. And we said, let's talk about Black Adam. And then we decided, let's talk about Martian Manhunter.
Yeah.
Because that's what the conversation was about.
What?
And then we were just
Jesse,
looking.
Here's what everyone really wants to know. They'd like to hear about the gag reel.
Oh, it's on there. It is on there.
Is it a big? Is it the big deep gag reel?
1 minute, 30 seconds.
Nice. High five. High five. Yeah.
Right there you go. So yeah, that's coming up Monday on the Source Material podcast. That should be dropping there. And that's all I have. I'm sure I'm going to be recording a bunch of stuff here at some point soon here for Unspoken Issues and the Source Material podcast as well. So keep an eye out on the feed. If you like comics, that's where we're at.
You got to get me on back so we can do Slayer, by the way.
Yes, that's right. Christmas is right around the corner.
That's right. You're going to have to take time away from my social life, my very full social life, to get me to record with you for an hour.
Pencil me in somewhere.
I'll pencil you in, all right.
Oh, my goodness.
Put you right on my naughty list. All right. So
Get me out of here.
That's enough of me. That's enough of me flirting with you tonight.
Just call me Juicy J.
I
and
will.
Then we'll call it a night.
What was the other one? Eggy Mule?
Eggy Mule. Yes. Call me Eggy Mule, please.
All right. For Eggy Mule, I'm a complete asshole. Be well, be safe, and behave.